Righto, well, I just looked at some of the advantages of running an online business, so it's now time to look at the bad side of it and look at some of the disadvantages. And I've got 10 here to discuss with you. And I suppose the first one, the big one, is the buck stops with you. I mean, you are now the boss. That's what you wanted? Congratulations. Give yourself a pay rise. No, hang on, wait, sorry. Don't give yourself a pay rise. You might not, in fact, actually be able to take any wages out of it for a while, so we'll just leave that one for now. But look, as the boss, you're the only one responsible for your results. Success or failure is mostly in response to the amount of effort and expertise you put into the business. You can't be an emu and bury your head in the sand with any niggling issues that come up. You've got to deal with them. You need to seek out answers. And that means that you also have to engage in ongoing education. Okay? So remember, the buck stops with you, the boss. Now, at times, of course, the technology can become confusing. It can be confusing. It can be overwhelming. Along with all the jargon of the trade and all the hoopla that seems to accompany the latest and greatest buzzy thing that tries to attract your attention. So the key to this is start simple and progress slowly as you learn and understand what you are doing. But the trouble is, the opportunities seem unlimited. And they are, to a point, where often you look at something and say, well, what can I do next? Because the reason is because something new can often seem to be a lot more interesting than what you've invested 500 or more hours so far on. So seriously, that means you must learn to avoid these types of distractions. And that's another reason why it's important to develop a plan. In fact, what you've got to do is commit to following that plan. And when you get a distraction that tries to turn you to the dark side, yes, Luke, I'm sorry, but when you get that type of distraction, remember you're committed to finishing the job that you're actually doing. Speaking of doing, maybe someone else is doing what you're doing. Is that bad? Well, you might think that it is a disadvantage of doing it online, but not necessarily. It could be a good thing, because if they weren't doing it, if they weren't doing what you want to do online, there'd probably be no market for it. The question is, how many others are doing it? How are they doing it? And is the marketplace big enough to support all this competition? And that's another reason why you need to do your research properly. Of course, it takes time to get going. Say it again. It takes time to get going. That's 100% correct. Rome was not built in a day, so why do some people expect that something online can succeed overnight? Look, just the major search engines themselves, they can take sometimes 2, 3 or more months just to see your sparkling new website. And then, you've got to build the authority and reputation of that site, and that's something that you must work on all the time. Think about how long it takes for you to become an expert at something. Professional athletes, for example, they take years to hone their skills with daily practice. Professional occupations take 4 or more years of college or university training to learn their craft. Tradespeople, likewise. Apprenticeships aren't an overnight thing, so how come some people get the idea that they can become an instant success online overnight? Well, I don't know, but the truth is, the money can take a long time to flow. And sometimes, maybe your idea just plain sucks and the money will never flow. What will you do then? Have you got a plan B, or a C, or a D? Or in my case, an L or an M, or I've tried quite a few things over those 20-odd years. And that points to the next thing. It requires constant effort. If you believe the lying in a hammock on the tropical island pictures, well, sounds good, and hopefully you could do that for a week or so every year. But anything that makes money usually requires a good amount of work to begin with. And maybe only after you become skilled at your art might you be able to work less. So your main activity is most likely going to be concerned with the development of new content and then the ongoing marketing of your website. Now, the greatest thing about working in the real world is the social contact you have with people. But online, not so much. You're fairly isolated, and the isolation can create negatives. And no, Facebook does not count. Even though it's called a social network, it does not count as social contact, okay? And this lack of real person contact, we better call it, means that you can end up feeling overwhelmed, isolated, fearful, etc., which can at times turn your mind to think of all sorts of negative stuff. So you've got to make sure that you have real offline networks, that you take regular breaks, etc., and that you use those things regularly. And a good thing to do is get a mentor if you must. Someone you can discuss the daily grind with. And that should not necessarily be your other half or your spouse. But, speaking of your spouse, it would help if he or she was supportive and understanding of what it is that you are actually trying to do. Because, well, when working from home, it's the work-life balance again. This is the negative side of it, because when working from home, it is easy to get distracted and spend too much time either on your family or on your work, one at the expense of the other. So make sure the balance between your work and family is finely tuned. Remember, a happy spouse is a happy life. Now remember, you still have offline obligations to your business. In this training, we're only talking about the activities that are involved in setting up your online business. And deliberately, I don't go to discuss any of those normal financial or real-world business obligations you might have. That is in the realm of an accountant or financial advisor, and that's someone who is knowledgeable about your specific financial situations and obligations in your country, okay? And we made it to number 10, which is quite simple. It says, if all else fails, remind yourself of rule number 1. You remember what rule number 1 was? That's right. The buck stops with you. So to sum up, the last few lessons have demonstrated that you can make money online by selling stuff, obviously. Products, services, or ideas, digital or real. It can be your stuff, or it can be other people's stuff. Right now is the best time to start doing it if that's what you want to do. And we've discussed some advantages and disadvantages of working online so that you can take active measures to use them effectively, or avoid them as much as possible. And in the next lesson, we're going to look at some of the possible revenue models you can implement online, so you can start to get a much better feel of what type of online business might best suit your style.